we've done yet. It is very, very critical that you help us by sharing this. We're going to be exposing the biggest scam in history, at least in our lifetime, I think maybe in all history, when you find out what we're going to be talking about tonight, how people have been ripping off the American taxpayer for decades, and a lot of stuff is coming out, but there's a lot more that hasn't come out yet that we're about to find out. I want to bring in my friend Mario Murillo. Mario, this thing gets deeper and deeper the more you look into it. Elon Musk just went on the Joe Rogan show. We're going to talk about it. But he even suggested that some of the stuff that he's uncovering is so significant that people could want to take him out. They could want to unalive him, if you will. What do you think about this whole thing?
I'll say this program, more than any other that we've done in almost 2 years, this is the first time where I prayed a certain way about whether or not. I said, God, do I say these things? Do Todd and I come out and say these things or not? And I had to have that peace that we were supposed to say what we're about to say. A lot of people that have followed our ministry know that I am no stranger to saying things about people and naming names when it is called for. And what you're going to hear tonight is a shock. And when we say the biggest scam in history, when you look at the dollars that we're about to address that have been stolen from you, you're not going to believe it. Some of you will have to watch this show a second time just to absorb what we're going to say. So that's why right now you need to take a moment and share this show and comment on it. When you hear the things that we say, make a comment, because you help us expand our audience when you do that. And every American needs to hear this, surely every Christian. And I want to begin by saying I'm a soul winner. The only reason I ever did a show like this, Todd, is because I wanted to win souls. Yeah. I didn't get into politics because I like politics. I got into politics because politics turned into something else other than politics. And I wanted to win the lost. And I knew I had to do this. So what we're going to uncover tonight is what happened to your money and what happened to America's money that was stolen on a scale. You know, we talked about $50 million that went to Hamas for condoms. That's nothing compared to what we're going to talk about. We heard about textbooks that we were financing for LGBTQ education of children in other nations. How we paid Colombia to be gay. We sent them money and said, please be gay, million. That's still nothing, not compared to what we're about to see. And I think the best way for you to understand what we're up against is for us to listen to what happened with Elon Musk. Finally went public just hours ago when he was on with Joe Rogan, and he said this. This will tell you what's going on.
Musk joined Joe Rogan for a shocking and revealing 3-hour discussion where Musk did not hold back, exposing his findings about corruption, fraud and scams since being the director of Doge, which aims to cut the waste of the US federal government.
Here's another way to look at this. Imagine if there are people like you and the Doge team out there in the world. Imagine if one of those works for an organization like USAID or any other organization and has this understanding of how much is involved, but they have evil intentions. And they're entwined in this system for decades and decades, and they've built a career and all the entanglements that come with it, and they start moving it around. You could probably do it easy. It sounds like the way you've laid it out. If you were a career person who's in there forever, who knew how everything works, and you were very clever, you could make some shit happen. And you could probably do it in conjunction with some people that you know that are forming an NGO. Hey, let's all work together. Yeah. And this is the resistance that you're facing.
Yeah. I think it's the biggest scam of all time.
This is not something you ever sought out to do.
The biggest scam of all time, ever.
Of human history.
Of human history, yes.
Wow. I think you're right.
Yeah.
What else could be bigger?
$1 trillion scam. There's never been $1 trillion scam, you know.
Musk then doubled down, adding George Soros's masterful use of NGOs to rinse billions from the American taxpayer is also a massive scam.
It's so insane that that's been going on for so long.
It's a gigantic scam. Like one of the biggest, maybe the biggest scam ever.
And how many NGOs?
I think there's a total number of NGOs, probably millions, but in terms of large NGOs, tens of thousands.
Ooh.
Tell the people what an NGO is. Give them a little tutorial on that, because this isn't going to have the impact unless the audience understands this.
So we got to understand what it is. Obviously, a lot of people know that it's a non-governmental organization, but there's different types of these NGOs. So you got the humanitarian NGO, you got the advocacy NGO, you got an environmental NGO, faith-based NGO, you got development NGOs, and they play a significant role in quote unquote humanitarian efforts. So Mario, this is really, it provides the perfect platform, if you will, for money laundering. It provides the perfect platform for some big donor, some dark money to be put in this NGO looking like it's fighting, let's just say environmentalism or whatever, the environment problems that the left say that we have. And they fund all this money, and then that money goes to other NGOs and kind of funnels down this rabbit hole. That's what Elon Musk is uncovering. He said in the tune of tens of thousands of these. So we have to think of how significant this funding web is, not just in America, but worldwide. And then you start thinking of some of the evil things that are happening. Let's talk about sex trafficking. Let's talk about the illicit drug industry that's all over the world. Fentanyl. Why is it that when President Trump is willing to, he says, look, we're going to tariff you, Canada. We're going to tariff you, China. All you got to do is just, have fair trade policies and stop the fentanyl. Why is it they don't want to stop it? We don't understand. There's so much money involved in this worldwide network. And President Trump and Elon Musk are uncovering this and slowly taking away the funds, actually pretty fast. But that's why there's such resistance right now. And Mario, I think the people that are screaming the loudest have the most to lose. And I think they're the most guilty. And when you see guys like Shifty Shift, that's what Trump calls him, but Adam Schiff from California, I remember the guy well because we used to be in his district, and guys like that out there that are out there on the news, on MSNBC and CNN, all these networks, trying to put everything on Trump. Why would anybody be concerned about the government auditing? They're fine when the government audits us with the IRS. Why are they not? What's the problem with us looking into where this money's going?
And getting back to the NGO, there are two ways, ladies and gentlemen, that you were hit. One is the money that you are taken from you by the IRS is to go to roads, education, the military, the economy. It's America. That money didn't go there. The money that we're describing, which is far more than you realize that was taken, it didn't go to what it was for. It went somewhere else. Many of these NGOs said, we'll pick a name. You'll see in the next video, we'll pick an innocent name, and then we'll go to a congressman and say, we want to help children. We want to get people away from violence. We want to do humanitarian deeds. All the while, it's a leftist organization, in some cases even worse than that, so that the money went into all these things. So let's say when you look at Kamala Harris, what was her budget for the Democratic? She outspent Trump 2.5 to 1. All right. They say 1.5 billion. That's not all. So much of the money that helped her election was illegal money. It was probably not a 1.5 billion, but in the tens of billions, and she still lost. That's why anyone that's watching now that doesn't realize Trump is a miracle, you're out of your mind. God bless you, but you're out of your mind if you don't think God's hand was on this man to win. This is an earth-shaking thing, and it's only starting to be known, Todd. What is some of the things you see that this money went to that goes beyond all of the stuff that we're talking about?
Ugh, I mean, it's just unbelievable to hear some of the things. One of the things that really was staggering to me, you mentioned Kamala's campaign, that she was paying people like Oprah Winfrey and these celebrities to do these endorsements. You think about some of the celebrities. Let's just kind of rack our brain for a minute and think about some of the celebrities that have come out for the Ukraine war over the years. And now we find out that money was being given to these folks to do these appearances. So, and it's not a small amount of money. It's large amounts of money for these celebrity types that have been out there. And Mario, I think that's so deceptive if you think about it, because let's just look at it from what they're trying to do. They're trying to use somebody's favorite actor or whatever. Oh, look, this person agrees with this. It must be right. And there's influence in that. Now, I think the world has awakened tremendously in the last few years. And I think that star power is really losing a lot of its power. But there's still a lot of people that are influenced by these people. And that's just one area. But to your point, I mean, I think people are getting fed up, though, that there's not been anybody that's been held to account yet. We're getting to a point here where it's like, are there going to be some arrests? You know what I'm saying, Mario?
Yep, I do know what you're saying, and we're going to jump on that with both feet. But here's a question that I have for the audience. I'm not even going to ask you, Todd, but I want you to jump in and answer it. But here's my question. Why in the world can a society tolerate an open border when they know that no other nation in the world had an open border? We were the only ones. How did we so easily buy into the lie that we were being merciful and kind and bringing to our nation people that were suffering in their own nations? They were political refugees, et cetera, et cetera. We all know now that was a gigantic lie. The open border was being financed by your money. And there were billionaires who got a hold of your money, sent it back in the form of influence, buybacks. Politicians were paid, leaders were paid, law enforcement was paid, governors. There's nobody that I can think of. There's no category that I can think of that wasn't at least on the take. The global mission of the open border was to destroy America. And how better to do it than with our own money? We were literally being taken down with our own tax money. All right. So why did we have an open border? The simple purpose was to infiltrate the nation with drugs, infiltrate the nation with crime, and eradicate America's power to resist a global government. That was it. But it's even darker than that. And we're going to look at a second video right now that explains to you how the NGO system was set up, how billions and billions, probably $1 trillion of American money was stolen and put into 10,000 separate organizations to do the bidding of a leftist agenda and to deprive America of its own wealth. This is an amazing thing. And the Democrats were complicit in this. They were the puppets of this. But let's watch this video as Elon explains how it works.
It's kind of a hack to the system where someone can get an NGO stood up for a fairly small amount of money. Like George Soros was really good at this. Like George Soros is like a system hacker. Like he figured out how to hack the system. He's a genius at arbitrage. I mean, these days he's pretty old, but a genius at arbitrage. So he figured out that you could leverage a small amount of money to create a nonprofit, then lobby the politicians to send a ton of money to that nonprofit, so you can take what might be, a $10 million donation to a nonprofit to create a nonprofit and leverage that into $1 billion NGO. A nonprofit is a weird word. It's just a non-governmental organization, and then the government continues to fund that every year, and it'll have a nice-sounding name, like the Institute for Peace or something like that. But really, it's a graft machine.
Online commentators were shocked, with this person saying, Elon Musk literally just exposed Democrats' George Soros money laundering scam on Joe Rogan. This commentator agreed, saying, There is no crime syndicate, no gang that could ever come close to the amount of money that was stolen from our government.
And it wasn't stolen from our government. It was stolen from you, folks. That's where the money came from, out of your pocket. Your hard-working, hard-earned dollars paid for this international scam. Now, I've got a lot to say about that, but go ahead, Todd. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you look at what President Trump is doing, it's exactly what needed to be done. It's exactly what we elected him to do. And the news media and the apparatus is out there bad. I mean, you go to Drudge Report, forget it. It makes it look like a totally different world than what's actually happening right now. And in all these, these fake news sites. But the problem, Mario, is that, to your point, I mean, we're not understanding yet the level of corruption with this whole Ukraine situation. And if you talk about it, they'll actually take you down on social media. I just had a post that was a fact check and takedown on a social media just for talking about Ukraine. So Ukraine is like an epicenter. Ukraine is a massive, I don't want to say it, but it's what we've been talking about over the last couple minutes here. That's why they don't want this war ended, Mario, is because there's more to it than just a meat grind here of, horrible loss of life and a war that doesn't need to be continuing. There's money going there. And even Zelensky himself said, we don't even know where billions of dollars went. But we've heard that money is finding its way. Some of these weapons are finding their way into the black market and to the cartels and to other places and other war zones in the world. Can you imagine that? Americans, so think about what the Biden administration did. They left billions of dollars of equipment in Afghanistan to the point where the Taliban is literally parading U.S. military equipment. Okay. Unbelievable to even think that happened with that. I mean, the least they could have done is blow it up if they didn't want to take it. Okay. That happened. Okay. Under the Biden administration. But now we find out that the money that we've been sending to supposedly support Ukraine, a lot of it isn't even making it there. Mario, I hear reports of certain oligarchs in Ukraine, very, very wealthy people living it up all around the world, yachts and, living a multi-million-dollar lifestyle. And, that's where American taxpayer money is going. I mean, this is insane.
Zelensky owns a large mansion in Florida, folks. How do you think he paid for it? But that's nothing. Still, we're only just now slowly digging away at this, and we're getting to the point. But when you hear the argument, Todd, that Trump is in the pocket of Putin, that he's Putin's puppet, that he's doing his dead level best to appease the Russian President Putin, that is the most garbage argument I can think of right now. And I'm going to explain why, and then I want to get your feedback on it. The fact is, how do you prepare for a war against an aggressor like China or someone else? How do you do it? Okay, what you do is you let another smaller country have that war, have your army come under their banner, and that's how you do it when you're in their territory. That is the stupidest possible way for America to get involved if it is sincerely trying to defend itself against Russia. What Trump is doing is making us stronger. He's making us energy independent. He's making the military stop being a gay pride parade and actual warriors. Parading not our openness to alternative lifestyles, but getting back to actual military strategy, military training. And we had generals in there that I can quote one of the generals, Willie, who was saying that he felt so warm and cuddly because he was woke, and that he felt that by giving the American fighting man all of this diversity, inclusion, equity, that made us a more moral army. Trump said the way to get ready for Putin, the way to get ready for China, the way to get ready for all of this is to strengthen and make our economy independent. But here is the real kicker, folks. I don't believe Zelensky wants to win this war. That's my private opinion. I believe he wants to keep it going. And what a hideous thought that is when you consider the life of the people. Even if you want Ukraine to be independent and strong, this is not the way to do it. Not to have a protracted meat grinder. And go ahead, Todd. Go ahead and
Yeah.
comment on that.
What President Trump is trying to do with this mineral deal, which is very, the rare earth minerals, very, very important, especially, to bolster our AI ability and computer semiconductors and a lot of the raw materials that we need in order to be on the forefront of this next, industrial revolution that's really happening right now. So he's thinking about, he's already had the meetings and positioned America to be a leader in the semiconductor and microchip business, which that's all pretty much been overseas. So the fact that this is now coming to America is going to really position us in a good way. But it behooves us to have a relationship with Russia. It behooves us to have an open dialogue and a trade, some trade with Russia. It actually behooves us to have them in, like the G7 or the G8, the G20. They need to be. And the reason why they were kicked out, listen, Victoria Nuland was all involved in this, the Obama administration back in 2014. I'm not going to get in the whole history of it, but to Trump's point, President Trump's point, this is a war that we never should have been involved in. And it's also a non-winnable war. There's no scenario that we see what is the objective of NATO? What is the objective of the West in this? Just keep pouring in billions of dollars of equipment. And actually what that's done is that's strained our ability to even wage war on a global scale. Some of my friends in the military said that what's happened is even some of the missile capability, if we were to go into a hot war with China, we would only have a certain amount of time where we could even keep the missiles flowing. Because our arsenal has been so depleted. And so there's a lot of factors here, Mario, that most folks don't understand. Now, of course, does the U.S. have the ability to rebolster our military? Yes, and President Trump is doing that. And we still have the strongest military in the world. But I'm just saying, these people have not thought of what benefits the American people, even what benefits the Europeans. Here's a crazy thing. I'll leave you with this. The Europeans have been buying gas from Russia, and they've spent more on the gas from Russia than they have on the sanctions and on the money to Ukraine. So tell me what world that makes sense,
No, doesn't. Not at all. Now, here I want you to see Tulsi Gabbard giving an explanation of the true intention that's going on with this leadership that we are describing right now. Would you roll that?
Also, though, think that they're in more alignment, and they should be, with the U.S. when it comes to those freedoms and things you talk about. Certainly, those are not things that you would say that Russia or Putin celebrates or bestows on his own people.
That's correct. I would not make that claim, and it's clear that that's not the case, nor does President Trump. But that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about many of these European countries and Zelensky himself, who claim to be standing and fighting for the cause of freedom and democracy, when we actually look at what's happening in reality in these countries, as well as with Zelensky's government in Ukraine, is the exact opposite. You have the canceling of elections in Ukraine. You have political parties being silenced or even criminalized or thrown in prison. You have the freedom of religion, churches being shut down. You have political opposition being silenced. You have total government control of the media. We could go down a whole laundry list of issues that are against the values of democracy and freedom. So it really begs the question, as Vice President Vance said again in Munich, it's clear that they're standing against Putin. Obviously, that's clear. But what are they actually really fighting for? And are they aligned with the values that they claim to hold in agreement with us, the values that President Trump and Vice President Vance are standing for? And those are the values of freedom, of peace, and true security.
All right, so the way...
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, and this show is that America should not walk into a trap. We cannot allow a woke, and this is the part that I think probably drives me crazier than anything else, Todd. I lived in Berkeley for 10 years during the anti-war movement. I led a student revival. The Jesus movement struck the most intellectual campus in America while I was there. We had thousands of students that were influenced by Christ. At that time, this is what the left believe in, free speech. They now believe in censorship. They said, make love, not war. Now they're saying make war. Okay. The third is that the establishment was to be resisted. And now they are wholeheartedly, blindly following the establishment. The counterculture of today is the young mind that follows Trump. They're the ones that are asking the questions. How did the left go from what it believed to believing in the very opposite of what it believes. But that's not even the rest of it. The most important thing is, why are we talking about this? So I'm going to cite a scripture, and I'm going to tell you what's going on right now as quickly as I can. Hebrews chapter 12, beginning at verse 27. Now this, yet once more, indicates the removal of those things that are being shaken as of things that are made, that the things which cannot be shaken may remain. Verse 28. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom which cannot be shaken, let us have grace by which we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, for our God is a consuming fire. Every once in a while, Todd and I are criticized by people that leave comments that saying you guys are too political. And the fact of the matter is, we've said this, we've said it over ad nauseum almost. A lot of those people are plants that come on this show and comment, who are leftists, who study our language and want to undermine you. Right now, the most important thing that the body of Christ can do is to understand what God is doing in this hour. He's shaking everything that can be shaken. Now, why does America need to understand this? And I'm sure you agree with me. We cannot allow the national debt to continue. The national debt. We don't even know how much of the unrepayable debt that we are in is the product of being bled by 10,000 NGOs around the world. We don't know. So now the Christian stands in a place where you're not hearing this. You know, you'll turn on a show and they'll say, you know, God loves you just the way you are. He wants you to be happy. He wants you to know that everything is just fine. And if God wanted to change everything, he would warn us. It's all in God's hands. Well, that sounds right until you say, well, let's get God's opinion on it. Is it really, Lord, in your hands? God turns around and says, read my Bible. You'll see, if my people, bam, there it begins. The model throughout the New Testament of military action, putting on the armor of God. If it's all in God's hands, why would I need to wear armor? If it's all in God's hands, why would I need to take up a sword? If it's all in God's hands, why would Paul work so hard to say, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present yourself a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable act of worship. And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. That's activism. It's all through the word of God. You know, people look at this tent where we're taking it across the country, we're winning souls by the thousands. None of that was done without blood, sweat, and tears. Every step of the way, there was something God said that I had to do, and there's something you have to do. And that is, you have to become unshakable. Even though we're uncovering $1 trillion scam right now, even though it's everywhere, and we've got even more to tell you. Let's begin to understand that Elon Musk said this to Joe Rogan. There's a point at which I'm going to uncover something, and when I do, they'll kill me. That's what he said. But see, you're different. Your life is in the hand of God, and he'll protect you. But God's protection is predicated on obedience and being involved in what he's doing in the earth at this time. You're not hearing this a lot right now. You're hearing a lot of, you can turn on a show right now. I'm telling you, the podcasts are everywhere, and they'll tell you everything's bad. God can't change it. Let me tell you the latest immorality thing. Let me tell you the latest scandal. Let me keep you agitated. At Firepower, we don't do that. We'll awaken you to this urgency and then tell you, look, here's what the Bible says to become unshakable, to serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, for our God is a consuming fire. We have received a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Therefore, we have to take the reins of this moment and realize we're on this earth to stop this evil. We're here to destroy the works of the devil. And one of them is to realize we have a president whose agenda will save us from destruction. And understand the screaming left, the screaming Democrats, the lily-livered Christians. They're not going to hear this, but you need to. Go ahead, Todd. I'm sorry.
That's so good and so anointed, and it's hard to even follow up that because you got me thinking there, Mario. Listen, we're talking about NATO, Article 5. Think about the people that are running the European Union right now, that are running most of those countries other than Italy and Hungary, which are allies to the Patriots and to the Trump administration. But most of Europe is now trying to plunge us right now into a World War scenario. That's literally what they're trying to do, if you think about it. And think about, these are the same people that ran the Obama administration. It's that same group. It's the same group that ran the Biden administration. And now they still have a stronghold in Europe. And Mario, we have to start thinking about this differently because, my whole life, NATO has been so critical. And, I think back to the Reagan era and how NATO held off the Soviet Union and eventually helped, see the wall come down in Berlin. But what we're seeing now is a different version of NATO. It's kind of like what happened to the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party went off the rails and became, for the most part, communist, in my opinion. Okay. And what's happening with NATO is they're following that same drumbeat and war. And then you have a populist president who's not a politician that's risen up here in America. And the church, listen, the same people, think about this, the same people that have pushed for the abortion, okay, for infanticide, for all this stuff. It's the same people that want the war with Ukraine in Russia. Think about it. It's the same folks. It's the same. Why would all of a sudden a Christian align themselves with that spirit when we know that this is demonic and it's a spiritual battle and we've seen this whole thing play out? Why would we now all of a sudden think about this for those that are on the fence? And I know you're listening to some reporting out there and they're making it sound different, but just listen to the Spirit of the Lord speaking in this broadcast right now. Why would we all of a sudden align with the people that have been the corrupt people that we're talking about? Why would we align with the people that have been after babies and all the other grotesque demonic stuff that we've shared so much about on this show? Mario, we have to look at the spirit behind this and the spiritual battle that we're in. And that's where it comes to understanding about how President Trump is on the right side of this. And you may not like the way he tweets or whatever, but the bottom line is you got to look at the bigger picture here. And so I'm going to leave it at this. I just want to bring this up and you can comment on it or you don't have to. But, I was thinking of Saul and his disobedience when he failed to finish the enemy. Now, I'm not advocating for any violence, okay? But what I'm saying is we need to finish this. We need to go all the way through on this. We can't get weak now after we've had this big win. This is going to take some work, and we're going to have to continue to push forward. And I think President Trump and Elon Musk are doing a great job.
Zelensky is not a heroic figure, ladies and gentlemen. You may think he is. He's not. And I'm going to tell you something. Nobody has been speaking out with greater logic and common sense than Marco Rubio right now. I have listened to him in the last few days, and I'm amazed at how clear his thinking is. And he said he challenged his audience. He said, tell me, CNN, MSNBC, tell me, Democratic Party, who else on the world stage today has the power to stop World War III from happening? Name one. Who? Only Donald Trump. And he's right. Then he said, you are so filled with hatred toward this man that if he was a Democrat instead of a Republican, you would be trying to give him the Nobel Peace Prize right now because of his efforts to stop war. Now, I'm going to say something else, and I'm going to get in trouble, but we've gone too far. I'm just hoping this show gets to be shown.
Please, yes.
If there is a nation in the world that right now is allegedly democratic, I'm talking England, France, Germany. I'm naming names. I'm naming those three names. If there is a democratic nation, quote unquote, and they are allowing an open border, and they are censoring their own citizens, which Britain is doing, they're getting money. That's the telltale sign. The old adage of follow the money, it's right there. If they are censoring free speech if they're allowing an open border, they're getting paid. And it's American money that they're being paid. And if you think that the spending is not intense and unbelievable, watch this video with Tucker Carlson right now.
Last weekend, I had a meeting in a ski resort in the Alps, which is probably the most expensive town in the world. I was not there to ski, for the record. But the whole town is Ukrainian. All the visitors are Ukrainian. And they're rolling into Air Maze and dropping $1 million in an afternoon. All through Europe, you see this. The richest people are the Ukrainians. That money is ours. It belongs to me and you and every other American taxpayer. That's where it's going. Second fact, not guess, fact is the Ukrainian military is selling a huge percentage, up to half of the arms that we send them. Half. And I'm not guessing about this. I know that for a fact, not speculation. And a lot of us winding up with the drug cartels on our border. This is a crime, what's happening. Our intel agencies are fully aware of this. You tell me they're not profiting from this. Of course, you think the CIA is not profiting from this? Yes, they are. Can't prove that, but I believe that. What, they don't know this? I know this, but they don't know this? They know this. No one is saying it. Like, no American seems aware of this. We're sending these arms to Ukraine, billions of millions, hundreds of billions of dollars, and it's being stolen and sold to our actual enemies. Like, what the?
The weaponry that we gave to Ukraine is being sold to the Mexican cartels. That's what he said. Now, he said it's a fact. He said it's a fact. All I know is, Todd, that what we are talking about here is total international insanity. And anyone, I challenge you, Todd, we need to say this. You look at any American that today still supports the Democratic Party. With what you are learning right now, you have to understand the reason they're being paid to scream and yell at these public meetings with Republican politicians, right, the town hall meetings, is because they have the money. The reason that MSNBC has lower ratings than Gong Show reruns is because they have the money. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you how bad it got. And now I'm really going to get in trouble. I did a crusade in New York, and the Democrats told pastors not to support me. We did a wonderful crusade there. It was really powerful. And then we came back for a second one, and they were scared of my stance on Trump. They were scared because they'd never seen a hybrid evangelist that could win the lost, pray for the sick, and still talk about political absurdity of the leftists. Well, they literally told these pastors, we're funding you. You know we are. This was in Buffalo and Rochester. We're giving you money. You stop this man. And it got to the point where they were even covering up immorality. And the day is here where it has to be said. It has to be exposed. It's even in the church, Todd. It's even in the church. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, you're right. And you know, who was receiving money during COVID? You know, who were there pastors? I mean, that's a question I think many of you know the answer. There's a lot of people that were receiving large amounts of money to take certain public stances. I mean, the rabbit hole is deep. It's really, really deep. And Mario, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but you know, I'm just thinking about this. I'm thinking about how Zelensky went into the Oval Office. Okay, we haven't mentioned this yet, and just absolutely disrespected not just the office of the president, but the people. The way that guy walked in,
yeah,
and was so and you know, many people say, well, it was President Trump. You didn't see the whole meeting, and it's available. You can watch. I think it's like 42 minutes, and you can see how everything led up to where it was. But I loved how JD Vance responded. Thank God that we have a vice president that has the president's back. That's nice to see. But they were absolutely right. And now, since he left that meeting, okay, and Zelensky left the country and was basically kicked out, okay. I equate it to, Mario, it almost reminded me of what happened with Kim Jong-un. Remember where he, you know, had the bigger button, you know, and it's the way that President Trump works the art of the deal. We're now hearing reports, and it's pretty clear that Zelensky wants to go ahead. He's done a complete about-face since his Oval Office meeting, and I think that's because the spigot has been cut off, and all of Europe together is not going to even be a drop in the bucket compared to what America's done. They can't They don't have the military. People keep asking me, wasn't Europe going to pick up the slack? No, there's no way that it's even possible for them to do that. They don't have right now the military. They don't have the finances. Even Germany, the biggest economy in Europe, could not really do a drop in the bucket compared to what America's been doing. We have been, for the most part, funding this whole thing. President Trump coming in and taking the stand that he's doing, and even allowing the world to see this guy and who he really is. I think the public opinion, Trump's ratings are through the roof right now. They thought that they were going to go down after that meeting. They're through the roof. And I think the folks have seen it. But Mario, my big question is there going to eventually be accountability? Because I do think that there needs to be at some point here. And I don't know if we want to go that direction or not, but with Epstein and with all these different things, somebody's got to get arrested and go down for these things.
We need to deal with that right away. And before we do it, if you want to understand Mr. Zelensky, listen to his own words. And we'll comment on this, and then we'll get to what Todd just mentioned. Let's roll that video right now.
The U.S. will have to send their sons and daughters exactly the same way as we are sending their sons and daughters to war. And they will have to fight, because it's NATO that we're talking about, and they will be dying.
Donald Trump said to that, no, we won't. And we won't. And there's no way we will. If anything, right now, the leaders of NATO need to wake up and realize that the con has been exposed.
Yeah.
The lie is being revealed. And some of you watching are saying, why aren't more Christian leaders talking the way you and Todd are? Once again, you need to follow the money. I'm telling you, there's enough money to cover all of the delusion. I don't know an area of our life that isn't being influenced at this point by this, and that's why we're exposing it. And I want to read another verse, and then we're going to comment on accountability. In Proverbs 22, verse 3, it says, a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. So you can watch this and say, okay, I'm not going to listen to you guys. I don't believe you guys. You're exaggerating. This thing isn't real. It is real. And it'll affect your kids. It'll affect your future. So, well, then what do you want me to do? Number one, I want you to stand with Trump and this phenomenal team that he has put together to uncover this corruption and bring the money back, and to understand that you educate yourself to see it is biblical for me to do this. It is right that I should stand in this arena against evil. And it's, I don't want you to take up arms. I'm not asking you to become a person that's wearing a tinfoil cone hat on your head. I'm asking you to have your eyes open and to follow what the Word of God says. God is creating a special breed of Christian right now that can thrive in this environment. But it is predicated on being honest before God about what needs to be done. Now let's talk about accountability. Why do you think that the one area that Trump is vulnerable in right now is with Pam Bondi, the Secretary of State? The Attorney General. Why is he vulnerable at this point with her? Because I agree with you. You told me this in private, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and I like Pam Bondi. I think there's a concern what's happened right now, and we're hoping that this changes. I'm hearing reports that all these boxes and truckloads are getting dropped off. I hope that's true. But the Trump administration has put it out there from even before they took the reins of government that they were going to expose the Epstein files, that we were going to get to see those files. We were going to get to see the JFK files. And, there's a couple of other ones that they were talking about as well. So the people have an expectation. It's been put out there. Now, there was this supposed release the other day. Really, nothing came out of it. It was kind of a big nothing burger. And a lot of people, even on the conservative side, were very agitated by this, and I think that it's now become a liability for the Trump administration. They need to bring this information out because this was a promise and the people expect it. And I believe they're going to do it, Mario. I think they're going to do the right thing. But I think it's a liability as of right now because the problem is that we've been told these things so many times. And here's the other problem. I know there's a deep state and there's this group probably within the FBI still that's fighting. And we know that there's some holdovers and people that probably need to be removed at some point. But here's the thing. Right now, the Republican Party and Trump have control of both, the Senate and the House. They have control of the Supreme Court for the most part. I mean, obviously, it's more leaning towards the conservative side. They have the presidency. They have the attorney general. They have the head of the FBI, and so on. So at this point, if the Democrats were in control, let's be honest, they would be going for it. And the thing is that the Republican, we tend to be too nice on our side. Sometimes Christians tend to be too nice. And that's what I was referring to about Samuel earlier, is just because we can't just say, okay, now we've got power, we're just going to hold off the agenda. No, because here's the problem with that, Mario, and I'll throw it back to you. Let's just say they win the midterms. That would be a tragedy, the Democrats. But if they do that, it's gonna greatly restrain President Trump's ability to do what he's doing right now. So he's got to, first of all, we got to win the midterms. We got to continue pushing throughout this whole term right now. But here's the other thing. Let's just say, God forbid, the Democrats were to get back in power in the next election cycle for presidency. Friends, I'm telling you right now, they will have no mercy. They will have no mercy. And you better believe they will finish what they're trying to do. So really, we have a mandate, and this is of critical importance. Do you agree with that, Mario?
I not only agree with it, I'm going to tell you that you take an individual like Maxine Water, and you take AOC, you take Adam Schiff, you take Chuck Schumer. They're acting like the Doge is raiding Medicare and Social Security, and it's taking food out of the mouth of the poor, when it's all about a travesty of global proportions, where billionaires have been created with your tax money, where wars are waged with your tax money, where crime is put on your streets with your tax money, and perversion is advocated on a massive scale. So America is looking and wondering, why did whoever the puppeteer was above Biden issue all of these pardons and put wording in it that America had never heard before, that said this: for this span of time, for crimes they've committed or may have committed, they would be held. Fauci, he is a human being bereft of all manner of decency. I don't think Fauci is capable of thinking a decent thought. What he did with children, what he did to our nation, cannot go unpunished. Whoever the clients are that rode that jet over to Epstein Island need to be exposed. And Donald Trump, my president, and Pam Bondi, I think the cry of the people of God is this: we have got to know what happened. We got to have names named. We've got to have people indicted and imprisoned. It says in Ecclesiastes, because the punishment for evil is not immediate, the evil of men grows. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. And President Trump, I believe you're going to do it. I believe you're going to keep your promise and you're going to deal with it. Now, and I feel like you're absolutely right. This is a major concern for Donald Trump right now.
Yeah. It puts him in a vulnerable place because, there's a lot of people that nitpick online, obviously, and there's a lot of people on the right that, they're like, hey, come on, So when I start hearing people that I know are strong supporters of Donald Trump getting, a little bit antsy about some of these things, there's no excuse at this point. Listen, if there's a corrupt branch in New York, those people need to be rooted out. I mean, Kash Patel, you're in control. You're in control of the FBI. Yeah. Pam Bondi, you're the attorney general, So I think people are looking for that to happen. I believe, like you said, it's going to happen soon. But this has been years, Mario. And I think a lot of us are kind of, I'm looking in the comments. I know a lot of people are just tired of this. They're like, how long are we going to wait? So, I want to read a scripture real quick to just go along that line. It's Luke 8:17. Many of you know it, but for nothing that's in secret will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. And so the one thing I know to be true is none of these people are going to get away with this. They're not going to get away with it. and they are going to be caught. They are going to be found out, and it's not going to end well for them. And if you happen to be watching this broadcast, you need to repent. You need to repent and come to know Jesus Christ. And I just believe, Mario, the hour is still late, and I don't think this is a time to be messing around.
Nope. And I think, again, I want to get back to soul winning for a moment, because I think it's astonishing. I have two goals in my life, Todd. Number one is to preach the gospel first. That's it. My passion is to preach to audiences that are lost and sick, to be saved and healed. That's my job. That's my passion. When I saw what was happening to America would be an existential threat to my ability to do that, God showed me a means by which, the same way I am contending for the souls of men, I'm contending for evil to be done. And when I hear a preacher complain about me doing this, I tell him this: I wasn't even supposed to do this. God came to me and he said, look, I tried to get others to say these things and they won't. So before you judge me for speaking out, judge your own heart for why you are silent, because that's really where the battlefield is in your refusal to stand up for these things. And you look at how many who signed the Declaration of Independence. I think you told me this, Todd. You were the one who told me this, that the overwhelming number of the signatures on the Declaration of Independence were preachers. They were preachers, pastors, leaders, Christian leaders, because they recognized what needed to be done. We are there. It is 1776 all over again.
Come on.
And that's what we got to do. Go ahead, Todd. I know you're ready. Go.
Well, and what you're saying is something that people say to me as well. Why do you just stick to the scripture to say, and we do. If you come to my church, we preach at least, I give about 10 scriptures a sermon. We love to talk about the Bible, and we get in and we're all about souls and soul winning. On this broadcast, this is a weapon. That's why it's called firepower, to arm and equip the saints of God so that we can be watchmen and that we can understand and discern the times that we're in, so we can effectively pray and take a righteous stand. And we've seen a miracle. The Lord did a miracle in the last few months in America. But now what we've understood is there's more that's going to have to happen. We're going to have to continue the prayer shield. We're going to have to continue to take the territory. Our battle is not over. And so we can't grow weary right now. We got to keep pressing ahead. And as we do that, we are going to see, and we're seeing it on campuses all around the country, Mario, where people, in fact, I want to talk about your movie in a minute, because I think some people are talking about it on campuses too. And something is happening where these young people are catching the fire of God. And what we desire is for our grandkids and for the next generation to be able to have that same freedom in America. And we know that it's always just one generation away from losing it. And America is the shining city on a hill. And Mario, you have a movie that's coming out, and I don't know if you want to talk about it yet, but I'm excited about this. It's coming real soon.
Yeah, I'd like to put that slide up and talk about it while the slide is up. Living proof. You see that QR code right there will take you to where you can buy your ticket. A lot of theaters are still showing it. We got over 500 theaters right now that are in it. We lost some because I think we were attacked. And that's all I'll say. I have a blog about it where I explain the whole thing. It starts this Sunday night. I want to remind you that we lose an hour. So you need to set your clocks ahead on Saturday night before you go to bed, so you're not going to miss this movie when it starts on Sunday, all of you that are going to it. It is a film that, and you can scan that QR code right now to get your ticket. It is a film that was recently reviewed by the president of Asbury University. That's an amazing, that school where the revival took place. Yep. Well, the president of that school screened our film, gave it a glowing review that was just amazing. And that is in my blog as well. But you need to come and bring someone. This is a weapon and a tool in the hand of God, and it will definitely be effective for people to be healed and saved. So do it now. it's very important that you buy your ticket as soon as possible. Thank you. Todd?
That's right. And when you buy tickets like that, it shows the theaters the interest, and then that gives them the ability to open up more screens. So it's really important to do that. And this is helping not just Mario, but getting the truth out, getting the gospel out. It's going to be an amazing movie. We're taking our whole church.
Right.
Hopefully, we're going to get maybe 2 screens. Looks like that might be the case. And Mario, you're going to be out here in Tennessee, and we're so excited about that.
Well, I'm actually going with you Sunday night. I'm going with you. We've got a whole group that bought out, and I'm bringing folks from where I live. About 15 of us are coming. And I'm getting reports from all over the nation of how excited people are about the film, and that there are pastors that have bought out 2 nights. Jim Freeze at Joy Church here in Mount Juliet bought out 155-seat theater in Mount Juliet, and we got reports of that all over the nation. But I think it's going to make an important impact on people's lives.
That's right. And there's actually another crusade coming up too in Carolina that you might want to mention. It's going to be at our friend Alan DiDio's church. I'm actually going to speak there as well. When's that, right, Mario?
Well, here's the news, brother. We got 600 volunteers right now.
Amazing.
The 10th crusade is Living Proof Charlotte at the Charlotte Encounter. Begins on Sunday, the 23rd of March through the 26th. And on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, Todd is going to be preaching in the tent. And I'm telling you, we did a night of miracles to lead up to the event. And we just got a report today of a woman that came from a great distance with stage 4 cancer. And her cancer, she went back to her doctor, got x-rayed, no tumors at all in her body. So we're believing that you need to bring the sick, bring those who don't know Christ. Is going to be March 23rd through the 26th. Every night at 6:30. We even cleared land. We didn't clear a forest, but a lot of underbrush and small trees on Alan's property. We opened it up for 10 acres of parking. And it's going to be an astonishing event. It's going to be amazing.
It's coming up. So get ready for that.